election fraud in Connecticut. Anybody who's followed the history in this state, especially over the last 7 or 8 years, knows that we have a problem.
Representative Christina Ayala's second arrest.
There's more trouble tonight for a state representative from Bridgeport who has been no stranger to trouble since she took office early this year.
So this time she's facing a criminal investigation accused of using a phony address during her run for office.
A troubled incoming state representative from Bridgeport was back in front of a judge on a new charge today, domestic violence.
Christina Ayala was arrested on 19 counts of voter fraud.
The poster child, that would be Christina Ayala, and her mother, the Democrat registrar of Bridgeport. The second is what happened in the Bridgeport election in 2010 for governor. And then the third is the fact that there is an ongoing problem with fraud in this state on two bases, and I'll get to those. So first of all, I want to talk about Christina Ayala. In 2014, she was arrested on 19 counts of election fraud, voter fraud. A year later, she finally pled guilty and was convicted of those 19 counts of voter fraud and put on probation. I just want to quickly point out that this is outrageous. A lot of people who were making comments in the news observed that she clearly got off way too easy. Think of any 19 things that you would do that are bad, that hurt people, that would be illegal 19 times, okay? There's a willfulness, a maliciousness that would be associated with doing that. And for this, she was basically let off. Meantime, down in Texas, I believe it was just recently, a Hispanic woman who proudly declared that she had illegally voted 5 times.
Prosecutors say Ortega lied on a Dallas County voter registration form saying she was a U.S. citizen and then voted at least 5 times over 10 years.
But the part that I think really bears close scrutiny that has not been done yet has been the role of her mother, Santa Ayala, the Democrat registrar of Bridgeport. She, maybe cynically, but I would say that she taught her daughter well. And I would like to know how she perpetrated those 19 different counts of fraud. Clearly, this would be part of a system that the Democrats are notorious for using all around the country. So she becomes an interesting case study. Now, on the second point, what happened in Bridgeport in 2010? There are 2 things to be quickly set up front. The first is that were it not for Bridgeport, Foley would have won. The second point is that it's the working families component of that vote that helped put Malloy over the top. Now, the essence of the problem, as they would tell it to you by reading the various articles that are on the internet, is that Santa Ayala was responsible for ordering the wrong number of ballots for the election. It turned out in hindsight that she had actually ordered the right number, but had misallocated them among the voting places. So when you started to have several of the, 27 or so voting booths or voting places in Bridgeport reporting shortages, it just created general panic. One of the worst things that was done as a result was that in order to make up for the shortage in some of these places, they would take one ballot and make many copies of it. Well, by law, each ballot is supposed to have a unique serial number on it. So instead now you had one ballot, same serial number, many copies being used throughout these places. And there was a case where a poll watcher was complaining loudly because the copied ballots were supposed to be segregated from those that were the originals. Instead, you had poll workers just mixing them together. The big problem was that when they did the tally, the Republicans had been outvoted by the Democrats 4-1. Going back to the 1940s, that has never happened. Going back to the 1940s to the present, for every gubernatorial election, the ratio of Democrat to Republican was never more than 2.5-1. Yet in this election, suddenly it went 4-1. Obviously something stank. As they looked at the numbers, the problem was that the number of Republican votes seemed to be abnormally low. In fact, as low as 50%. So you had this chaos, if you will. You had the case of another bag of ballots being found, which makes it suspicious. And the problem is that it was never investigated. So you're just left with a sense that something was clearly wrong. And without pointing fingers, Santa Ayala was clearly at the center of this, and later on it was her daughter who would be convicted of 19 counts of election fraud. You gotta wonder. So in any event, this points to an ongoing problem, which leads to the third point. On the voter rolls of cities like Bridgeport, New Haven, New Britain, Hartford, Stamford, Norwalk, you've got a substantial number of illegal aliens who are on those rolls and have not been taken off. The state is perfectly capable of doing it. It's a classic case of the different agencies passing the buck. The one that should do it would be the Secretary of State's office, but they like to say that they don't have any, that it's not their job to enforce voting laws. Well, you know what? It should be.